Hello, everyone. We got some music in the house today. Why not? Why not? How you doing, Alicia?
I'm well, Mark, living on the edge with that music, hey? Like making sure that
Apparently.
we get broadcast, hopefully.
Well, hey, we got to have the pump and we got to get pumped up and excited and get the energy going for these fantastic live Q&As. There's nothing more dry than talking about law generally. Those are the worst conferences that I've ever attended. They're just snooze fests. It's interesting as I look at over the years, the number of sessions that I've done everything in my power to try to make them as entertaining as possible. So that's what we're doing here today. And these live Q&As, even though they're the same format every single week, you guys, everyone is different. And how are they different? Well, it all comes down to your questions. And we've already got a bunch of people jumping in here. Let's give some shout outs to a few people. Let's see, make sure I've got this here. So we've got Eric. Nice avatar there. Cool shades, Eric. Hello to you. Okay, we got Jackson. Hey, Jackson, you were tuning in yesterday. I remember you, my friend. Mr. Mark and Alicia, greetings to you, and greetings to you, Jackson. Nadia, hi, Alicia and Mark. Excellent. And we got Ralph. Hello, my brother from another mother. Good to see you, my friend. If you're tuning in for the first time, and even if you're a repeat person, post in the comments below where you're tuning in from. Now that the CRS scores are starting to drop down, more and more people internationally are starting to maybe get that range where they're getting invitations to apply. The PNPs have always been going, but we love to hear where people are tuning in from, whether you're looking to study, to work, even to visit Canada, sponsor a spouse, sponsor a parent or grandparent. Some of you are getting invitations, right, Alicia? Those things are notifications are getting sent out.
They are going out, and so that's one thing to keep an eye on and make sure that your application email address is something that you're monitoring. So whatever immigration email address that you provided way back in 2020 is the one that those notifications are going to. So it's only people who had those notifications of interest back in 2020, and hopefully they're still eligible, they're still meeting those financial parameters to sponsor their parent. Those are the ones that are getting those notifications now, and they have a pretty quick timeline to make sure that they've completed that application and turn it around, and also to prove they're still eligible. But make sure to check your old emails, or hopefully they're still your current emails.
Yes. And you guys, these things are extremely volatile. If you get something wrong, the consequences. And it's just unbelievably heartbreaking for me, Alicia, when I have a consult with someone who maybe didn't include the right notice of assessment, or they didn't calculate their notice of assessment properly and they fell below the minimum income, or there was just some other aspect of their application that was a little bit off, to then get bounced and literally lose your opportunity. So we're here to support you in whatever way we can. So keep that in mind as we go forward. All right, let's see. We've got Steve Julius 2010. He says, "Hi guys." And Steve is tuning in for the first time from Toronto. Okay, let's see. I got to get the proper sound effect here. How about that one? There we go, Julius. Great to have you joining us. We've got Eli, who's over in Vancouver. Great to see you, Eli. And those of you who are tuning in while you're at work, don't let your boss see. Okay? All right. Okay, we've got G2D2, who has become a very frequent watcher. Hello to you. Greetings, he says, or she says, from Tunisia. Let's see what else we have here. Those of you who have questions, we will absolutely get to answering those. We'll do a couple more shout outs and then we'll transition. We want to talk about just a couple little high level things as well before we transition to the questions. But this is all about answering your questions. And the better questions you ask, the better this live Q&A is going to be. Remember, we've got one little symbol that we will hit from time to time, and it's that little triangle. And what does that mean, Alicia?
It means book a consult, Mark. We really want to speak with you. Yeah, but there's too much going on to be able to provide general information. We need to actually get some more circumstances, understand exactly what's going on for your life, and get the details that we need to actually be able to provide you helpful advice. Because Mark, neither you nor I would ever want to tell somebody something that would lead them astray. And we just can't know unless we sit down and get all the information from you about what's going on in your life, maybe things that you wouldn't have even have thought to mention that we
Yes,
need to know because it makes a big difference for what your options are or maybe for what the risks are in your application.
absolutely. Exactly. So the way you get your question chosen for the live today is by asking something that will benefit everybody. And the more general that you can make it, then it gives Alicia and I the opportunity to address it in ways that is really going to give the biggest bang for buck. So there's also the ability to do a super chat if you want to get your question answered right away and you don't want to wait till we kind of circulate down to it or not get to it. That's another way that you can bump your question up. But yes, specific questions we always push to a consult, and it's to protect us, you guys, as much as it is to protect you. We want to make sure we're giving you proper legal advice when it's something really unique to you. And the only way we can do it, as Alicia has indicated, is by getting all the facts. And in the 200 character limit or whatever YouTube's given you or whatever your channel is, it's just not enough. And we wouldn't want to do that anyways. Your lives are private too, right? Okay, let's jump into the next one. Okay, we've got Katambo who's over in Uganda. So welcome from the continent of Africa. Great to have you here with us. And we've got Nadia who's in Jamaica. So hoping to study and work. Yes, indeed, Nadia. And the interesting thing is that Canada loves students. They really do. It's been a little bit challenging because they've taken in so many so quick, but they still are the lifeblood of our permanent resident programs. And so those of you who are looking to study here, it's cutting her kind of close to try to apply to start in January now. But those of you who are starting kind of midterm, I'll be honest, now is the best time to start thinking about what you're going to
Yeah.
do because it takes time to do it right. Right, Alicia?
Yeah, and the funny thing, Mark, is that a lot of people realize that study permits are the pathway to being able to get that Canadian education, which gives you points for your CRS score for express entry. It's also the pathway where you're able to, as long as you carefully pick your program, you have to have an eligible DLI and you're going to a school that has a postgrad work permit eligible program. As long as those two things are in place and you've successfully graduated, you get your postgrad work permit. And once you get your postgrad work permit and have that Canadian experience, you have a way better chance at express entry. But immigration still considers a study permit as a temporary application. It's a temporary permit application, which means you have to show temporary intent. And so this is the funny thing about study permits is if you can't show that temporary intent, those applications are not going to be approved. So keep in mind it is a temporary application, but you really need to do it properly so you have a long-term pathway to PR.
Absolutely. And on that note, I really want to encourage you guys, if you haven't, I'm sure probably most all of you have, go to this video, this one here, TR to PR, top 6 takeaways from the minister's report. So this report, I guess there's a reason 42,000 people have watched it, but in there, I specifically address as my sixth, as my sixth takeaway, the new approach that immigration is going to be taking to international students. And maybe it's new, maybe they've already started to institute it, but you absolutely want to jump to number 6 and pay attention to what I'm sharing in that video regarding everything from choosing where you're going to study as much as at what school and the programs. So there's a lot of really good insight into that. And so that's a little bit of a teaser. So if you want to check it out, go check out that YouTube video. If you're watching on Facebook or LinkedIn or any of the other channels out there, take time, go over to the YouTube channel and watch it. It's a short little video. Our video editor, Phil, did a phenomenal job. It was really fun making it. And I think you'll really like it. So, and it's obviously the information is without, like it's awesome. It really, really will give you some good insight into where the government is going. Now, with that being said, Alicia and I, this isn't fancy bells and whistles, right? This is all about giving you actual information without the fluff, without the fancy, explainer videos and stuff. This is really about us giving our time to try to help you guys. And we hope that in our efforts to do this, that you will learn to trust us, that you will have enough confidence to go over to our website and book a consult and just see what the whatever 9 point or whatever with 4.9 whatever out of 5 rating that we have. Anybody who has a 5 star rating and has over 100 reviews, question that. But go check it out and you'll see what everybody else is what they're celebrating when they come and contact us. All right, let's zip down to some more questions here. I think we've pretty much got most of them. Mariana, good to see you. She's connected in. We've got Hardy. Hey, Hardy's back. Cheers from work. Okay, we've got
Maybe
Ozan.
it's lunch break. It might be lunch
maybe
break.
It could be lunch. It could be lunch. Ozan, good to see you. And as always, tuning in from Kitchener. We've got Dill, who's in Ottawa. That's the home base of Cedric. And let's see what else we have here. What is next? Oh, other people are acknowledging this, Alicia. Look at this. Kyria, it took me a second to figure out what that comment was. I think she was relating on don't let your boss know you're watching this at work. Okay. Yeah. Keep your earbuds in and stuff, but leave them on that setting that allows you to hear your boss walking up behind you. Don't do the total noise cancellation. Okay. And Hardy says, by the way, Mark, you nailed it yesterday. CRS was 496. Yes, I did. Yes, I did nail it. So we were.
Hey, I was finally right on my prediction. Way back when I said by the end of October, it's going to be below 500. And I won that. I was right.
Yes, she did. I said it was going to be the very next draw, that it could potentially go down there, and then it hit 500. So I was so close. But Alicia said that it would happen by the end of October. So she's actually the smart one. And if you want any real questions answered properly, Alicia, especially about how long your application is going to take to process, Alicia knows all of that. Okay, maybe not entirely. Okay. All right. We've got Salam, who's over in Iraq. Thanks for connecting in. We've got EJ's over in Saudi Arabia. Happy weekend there. Fantastic. Eric is in Toronto. And we've got a really great mix of people that are tuning in. And yeah, as you jump on, just give us a little shout out and we'll be happy to pull it out. It's kind of fun to just see where everybody's tuning in from. So we've got Albert is over in the UAE. I love that shot. Look at that. That's awesome. That's the whole crew there. Very, very cool. Okay. And Roshan says, thanks for the live section. All right. I think we've got a bunch. Wow, I could just keep going here. We've got a really good group in. Deuce is over in Trinidad. My son spent a good year and a half in Suriname and just really close there to Trinidad. So very cool. Oh, look at this. We've got Wilk. Hola, Wilk. ¿Cómo está, amigo mío? From Lisbon. Nice. I love that. We've got Anani, who's from London, UK. Oh, Martha. Okay. Very good to have Martha tuning in. And yeah, we've got a fantastic group. Okay. All right, Alicia, we led off a little bit talking about the rounds of invitations, and I do want to pull this up here. Let's see if we can find the right page here. So yes, yesterday, we can see as we take a look at the rounds of invitations, October the 26th, there was a pretty big draw there. 4,700 points, 750. And this is what I am most curious about. Okay. No one's talking about this, but I am, you guys. Look at the pool. Okay. Look at the pool. Do you see what happened? As of October the 24th, right here, you can see there were only 937 people above 500 in the pool. So what that could mean, some people may have gone back into the pool, but by and large, there were only 937, give or take, new people that were coming in that didn't have a provincial nomination, that were coming in through human capital alone. And so with a big drop like that, there were 6,226 total. So you guys can do the math. 6,900, 700. So that's like 6. What is that? 7, maybe pushing 8 by the time we even it all out. There's maybe about 8,000 total people at 491. We know that over half of them, have been pulled out. So there is a very outside chance that we could get down to the very low 490s, maybe scooping out all of these people potentially, who knows, in the next draw. It's possible if we do another no program specified. So those of you that are hanging in there, you can see that the numbers are not astronomical anymore. You know, you can see if you're in the 480s, it's starting to creep down to a level where, you know, there's some elements of normalcy. Now, Alicia, we know that there's been lots of discussion with Minister Fraser, and I can't help but do this. Let's see. I don't know if it'll work here. Oh, it won't. Dang it. I was going to pull up Minister Fraser. See, when I'm on this one here, he can come visit me. But unfortunately, Minister Fraser, when I'm with Alicia here, he's kind of shy. So he mostly just likes to come with me because we're good buds. Okay. Okay, not the real Minister Fraser. I'm not really good buds with him, but I am with the graphic image overlay that I've created of him. Me and that Minister Fraser are good buds. He comes and joins me all the time. Okay, so Alicia, like so much hype, so much speculation, so much fear, so much uncertainty about what these new people say. Oh, Bill C-19 and these powers, and are they going to stop doing draws like no program specified? Are they just going to target it? Like, what are your thoughts on that, Alicia? Should people be freaking out about this?
I really don't think so, because I think finally what's happening is there was a log jam, right? COVID happened, the log jam happened. It's finally getting pulled apart. Stuff is finally starting to move. I had an applicant that I helped file their express entry application for, Outland, FSW, 2 years ago, back in November of 2020. He contacted me. He said, "What's going on? Why hasn't my application finally moved?" And guess what? He just got his passport request. And so they're finally clearing out that big backlog of applicants. Finally, those CRS scores are coming down to something reasonable. So you don't have to have a PhD necessarily. You don't have to be perfectly bilingual English and French, and you still may have a shot at getting a CRS that's a healthy CRS score that's eligible for a draw sometime soon. So
All right, let's go to our first question here. This one is from Neil Rogers. And Neil says, in your experience, so this is your experience, Alicia, will the new M44 changes affect retail supervisors as it's one of the highest in demand jobs in Alberta where I live? This is a great question because lots of people know that they are, and maybe Alicia, you can just touch on this M44, this motion. I did a lot of videos on this topic itself, but maybe you can just tell people what this M44 is, and then, see if you can tackle this because we're in Alberta. So it's a good question for us.
yeah. So it was a private members bill, and so it's not binding on the government, but they say, you know what? It's really important that we have a pathway to transition skilled immigrants, especially international students and other people who are here as skilled workers, to some sort of way that they could obtain permanent residency. And the minister's office was given this deadline of 120 days from back in May of 2022 to go and actually make something happen or be able to justify what they are doing already. And so that is what the minister did. So that's not a new program on a TR to PR pathway like it was in the past, which is not to say that it won't be some sort of new program. It doesn't rule out the possibility of a new program. But basically, what Minister Fraser said in their report, and this is the report that Mark is breaking down in his top 6 takeaways from what the minister has actually said, because it's a publication basically that we were pretty disappointed about in the beginning because we were expecting something new. And in effect, it was not something new. It was the Minister of Immigration saying, hey, we're working on all these things, and here are all the programs that we already have, and here's how we're going to try to fix some mistakes and improve them. So really that's what the response was, and it was a little bit after the 120 days, so it was confusing as to when is this being made public. But it was made public September 20th, and this is where Mark is breaking it down and digesting it. So yes, occupations in demand and the province's ability to be able to pick and choose skilled immigrants that are going to fit with the economic needs for their province, that's going to be something that's increasingly important. And there will hopefully be more mechanisms where municipalities, rural communities, and provinces will be able to have more say in who is going to fit within the economic profile and the needs of the province.
All right, let's jump to our next question. Okay, this one is from Meet Shaw. I love these handles. Hi, I applied for a study visa, but I wrote the wrong course type. will it create an issue?
And so, Meet Shaw, I would say we need more information. What kind of application did you put? How did you submit your application? Did you do it yourself? Did you use, a consultant or an agent? Did you use the old GCMS? Did you use the new portal? Did you use the new TRV portal? What kind of course were you applying for? Why did you put the wrong course type? What was the justification for, your program of studies? How does it fit with your past education and your career plan? So if there's something that's incorrect in your application, yes, you definitely need to fix it and you need to address it correctly so that immigration doesn't say, hey,
Yes.
you misrepresented and lied to us.
Mhm. Exactly. All right. Next question on our list. This one is from Alex. Hi, tuning in from BC. My spouse does not start his new job until November the 1st. Do I need to wait until he starts, or can I submit my express entry profile without it now? I'm the main applicant.
And I think, Alex, you were on last week too, and I'm trying to remember the circumstances. Hopefully, you can remind us what I think both of you are in BC, and I can't remember what your status is. I think you were trying to figure out whether to submit that open spousal work permit extension. I'm trying to remember from last week.
Yeah.
Um,
And this
do you
is where
remember
it
more?
becomes so challenged. Yeah, I
Yeah,
can't remember exactly. So that's one of the challenges with the character limitation, but also our ability to really drill down to specific things that affect you directly. I strongly
yeah,
encourage you to slide over, Alex, and in a short little consult with Alicia, this is the best time of all to get that direction, because that short little consult, Alicia can help you to sort out the best strategy going forward and to help you consider things you maybe haven't considered before and just set up a long-term plan for your immigration strategy. And the worst thing for us is when people have tried to go down a path, have burned up, say, 2.5 years of their 3-year postgrad work permit, and they've done something wrong. They've taken the wrong position. There's something that they have made a decision with that they had no clue was wrong. And then there's nothing that we can do. So if you're ever thinking about, getting some assistance, it's best to do it as early as you possibly can in the process.
yeah.
All right. Okay, Sylvester says, oh, this is right in your wheelhouse, Alicia. I've filed my visitor visa here in Accra, Ghana. It's been over 2 months now and still haven't heard from IRCC. Okay, I said that a little facetiously. What do you recommend I do? Should I use the study pathway? I'm really confused. So this is interesting because, Sylvester, and I'll just jump in just to kind of lead into this. What is the purpose of you applying for your visitor visa? If you're thinking about applying for a study permit as well, you know, is there issues with the genuineness of your purpose of entry to Canada? And you have to be very careful with that. But we know processing times, and Alicia, you can jump in now as far as the challenges. I'll find the processing times and we'll pull it up here. But
Mhm.
I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, and so this is part of the problem with some of those visitor visa applications. They've been sitting for a number of months, and the processing times have been creeping up and up and up throughout the whole, those months. I just had a consult this morning with a few clients who submitted visitor visa applications 6 months ago, and they're still waiting on an answer from 6 months ago. And part of the problem in those circumstances is the reason for the visit has materially changed because the original reason they wanted to come happened a couple months ago now. And it's probably important for you to update the reason for your visit if it's been sitting past the duration of why you were going to come in the first place. So that's one thing to consider. 156 days
There's
we're
the
looking
answer.
at.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a long processing time. But when you're asking about a study permit, it's a different application. And the justification for the study permit would be a different reason for coming to Canada. A lot of people, and we should put this on our frequently asked questions page on our website, Mark. But a lot of people don't realize that you cannot apply. The general rule is you are not allowed to apply for a study permit from inside Canada if you're only on visitor status. It's different if you already have study permit status or you have work permit. If you actually have a work permit in hand. If you're here on a work permit or a study permit, you can apply for a study permit from inside Canada. But if you're here just on a TRV, you are not allowed in general to apply for a study permit. Yes, there have been some kind of crazy exceptions to that rule because of COVID, but most of those are very, very case specific and or they have ended. So be really careful if you do want to study, if that's your ultimate goal, then make sure that you're honest about that. Make sure that you've laid out a careful study plan and why you need to have that Canadian education. It's not available locally and how it's going to further your career back in Ghana.
All right, let's jump to our next one. I have to pull this one up. Meet Shaw says, imagine your boss is watching and saw your comment. Well, fortunately for us, we're our own bosses here, so we're okay. But you guys, well, I don't know. I guess, well, that's the disclaimer. We won't be responsible for any trouble you get into watching this while you're at work. But we sure appreciate you watching regardless. Okay. Okay. Patel says, hey, Mark, I showed a voluntary unpaid internship when I filed for a study permit. I did not show that in my work visa and work permit. And now for express entry, do I need to mention this in a letter of explanation?
Yes. Yeah.
It's as simple as that.
Yeah. So for sure, Meet Patel, it's really important when you're doing your express entry application that you cross-reference all your prior applications. So when I review somebody's express entry profile and application with them when they're doing their eAPR, I say, where are all your other applications? Where is your visitor visa application? Where's your study permit application? Where's your PGWP application? And it's really essential to cross-reference all of those and what you said on all of those prior applications in order to make sure that immigration can't say that you've misrepresented, that you've omitted something that's essential to your application, especially when you're relying on it for points, or even if it's just a gap and it doesn't make sense in terms of your background, your address history, your work history.
Yeah. And it's interesting too, Alicia, because lots of people will say, well, what does this letter of explanation look like? Like, how do I do it right? Because I'll be honest, it can make a huge difference in your application if, depending on if you do it correctly or if you don't. And so one of the things I just finished this morning, it was last day, the final day of the masterclass for the express entry course. And this topic, Alicia, came up probably 2 or 3 days out of the 4 at the same topic. And in the course, one of the things that we try to provide people is resources and tools that can help them. So in the mastering your documents module, I've got every single thing, including on page 2 here, what we have as our letter of explanation. This, you can see I do a video that's almost 30 minutes alone just on how to draft your letters of explanation. And then we created some nice templates to help guide you. Now, when it comes to templates, I wish every single Express Entry candidate out there used my letter of explanation for the eAPR and the letter of explanation for specific documents, that they use these templates in their applications. I don't care, because I truly believe that it sets things in a way that allows the officers to match up your explanation with your application in the fastest, easiest way possible. Now, with that being said, when you're going through this process and you're submitting applications, you'll go online and you'll find lots of reference letter templates, right? And there's a huge difference between a letter of explanation where everybody's following the same LOE template compared to someone who has an employer in, well, let's say Chandigarh, an employer in Canada, and they spent some time in the US, and every single employer is using the exact same format of letter, using the same style, the same fonts, the same bullet points. As an officer, if I was to put my immigration officer hat on, and I would say, why in the world were 3 companies all over the world have the same letter that looks the same? It's like one of those, except it's more like, let's see, I got to find the right sound effect here. This one maybe. Yeah, there you go. So it's a huge warning sign, right? So don't trust those online reference letter templates that you have when you're putting it together. If the company says, hey, can you put the draft together and then I'll review it? That's fine. But boy, if it looks the same as the other, 50,000 people that have looked at that template, that's why I don't post it online. Now, do I have templates? Yes, I do in my course, but I specifically provide and examples of over 30 different ways people have done them that have all worked, that are all PRs of Canada right now. So I just thought I'd jump in and share that. And when it comes to the actual course, this cart, Igor's going to have this reopened again. And I really, really wish, Alicia, that people would subscribe to it now. We're going to do another one in November, but I subscribe to it now so you can go through and actually review all of these modules so that when we do our live masterclass sessions, like we did this week, it was at 8 a.m. in the morning. In November, I'm going to do it in the evening. So I'm actually probably going to start it at 7 to 8 p.m. in the evenings during that week to make it as accessible as possible to everyone else. And let's face it, it's dark here. The snow is probably around. So I'm going to be sitting in my house anyways, probably. Okay. So check it out. And you can see there's over like 642 minutes of videos and tools and resources and modules for everything. So if you haven't, I recommend you go to the site and check it out.
And I should add too, so there's a couple of ways of working with us. Like if you can't afford to hire us directly, then for sure do the DIY course with Mark, because that's going to give you a fantastic foundation. But if you are able to hire us, we work with you directly to make sure that all those template letters are personalized and they make sense for your circumstances, and it fits with everything that we're looking back historically at in all your prior applications to make sure that you haven't forgotten anything.
Yeah. And I've said to my staff over and over, I've said to the lawyers, and I say to you, I would hold this collaborative review approach up against any other form of representation that a lawyer or consultant does out there. I would hold it up against any of those as the absolute best approach for helping you to make sure that your application is prepared as properly as you can, that gives you the best chance of success, just because you work directly with us and not with a middle person, but with an actual immigration lawyer, one of our fabulous lawyers in our team here that are all focused exclusively on immigration, every one of us, and you work directly with us, no middle people. And when we are going through this, nothing gets missed when we, and Alicia always cringes when I say these stuff, but the reality is like the likelihood of something getting missed is astronomically lower than when you're filling out some questionnaire and hoping that a paralegal fills it in properly and you never even get a chance to look at it before the representative submits it, which is the case sometimes. So anyways, there we go. There's our plug, and freak, we're going to plug ourselves. Absolutely we are, because we think we're awesome. And if you want further checks and balances on that, go search up Hopefully Law and check out the reviews and read them for yourself. So there you go. Okay, moving on. Okay, Mariana says, if we're eligible for both CEC and FSW, which one will get an ITA under? Hoping next draw will be it. My CRS score is 494. Mariana, that's so close. Yeah. So how does it work, Alicia?
So it works in that immigration can choose whether they do an all program or no program specified draw. If they do a no program specified draw, then they have the choice of being able to give the invitation to apply under CEC or under FSW if you are eligible for both. So in your profile, in your express entry profile, it'll tell you whether the minimum criteria are met or not met for CEC, FSW, and FST. If you have met the minimum criteria for both CEC and FSW, and they do a no program specified draw, then immigration is going to decide which ITA to give you. It makes a difference because you have to prove settlement funds for FSW, for example. So that's one of the big differences. Sometimes immigration does a specific CEC only draw, and sometimes they do a specific FSW draw. So those haven't happened yet since the pandemic. So far, it's been an open program draw, and it's up to immigration to decide which your ITA will be. Under the new Minister Fraser's new kind of targeted draws that we don't really know about yet, but there is an indication that immigration will be able to pick and choose where they're going to slot you with a little bit more of their choice, less of your choice in the future. So we'll see.
Okay, here's a big one, Alicia. So this is a super chat. Aniela says, I received a letter from IRCC, I'm presuming, saying you are authorized to continue working with the same conditions until, you know which letter this is, until November the 8th, 2022, or until a decision is made on your application, whichever is first. work permit extension, TR to PR, should I stop working?
And yeah, really, truly, we need to talk with you because we need to see when did you submit your TR to PR? What kind of work permit were you on at that point? Um, yes, you get this template letter back from immigration, but the problem is that letter doesn't necessarily line up with what the law says with respect to implied status and implied ability to work under implied status. And it really depends on what kind of work permit you had, whether it was employer specific, whether it was an open work permit, and what kind of work permit you are applying for now, whether it's employer specific or whether you're eligible for one other type of open work permit. When you're switching from an open work permit to an employer specific work permit, there's some specific problems and things that you need to have made sure that your employer did correctly in order for you to have a hope of being approved for that second work permit. And so if that wasn't done properly or if it's tenuous, then it's possible that you may not be authorized to work for a specific employer if that's the only pathway that you have. So please book a consult and we'll go through your circumstances in detail.
Yeah. And I want to point out one other thing too, Aniela. When we get these questions, the challenge is that there, like Alicia pointed out, there's so many different permutations. These letters are automated. So some people, their work permits may have already expired, and then they tried to apply for an extension, right, of their work permit. And they did it after their work permit expired, and they just didn't realize they were supposed to put restoration of status. And the moment that permit expires, if you have not submitted your work permit before the expiry date, then you are out of status. And this letter, is issued automatically because you entered the wrong information in. And so that's often one of the problems. Alicia, I had a client last week that we booked a consult with who got his work permit extension application refused because he applied under the TR to PR pathway French stream. But the PR application wasn't rejected. It was over a year that they still hadn't rejected it. And he had time to file his bridging open work permit. They accepted it as being complete. I don't know what happened. But anyways, he filed that bridging open work permit under the TR to PR pathway, and it was rejected. And he never had authority to go through the PR, that PR stream anyway. So there's so many different aspects of this, Aniela. And like Alicia said, in that short little consult, we can dive right in and we can really give you advice that's legal advice, based on the law. And when a lawyer gives you legal advice, it's something that you can rely upon. And if we give you improper legal advice, then that's negligence. And you can actually go and seek compensation if we gave you the wrong legal advice. So that's the difference that people have to understand when they book these consultations. It's not like, oh, we'll give you advice based on our experience, because Alicia and I have been working for over 20 years in immigration. Yes, Alicia's got me ahead of me by about 2 years, but we've been at this game, immigration, for a very long time. But we don't give our advice just based on the experience we've had working with clients. The advice we have is, yes, colored to some extent with experience, but it's based on law. And that's why we charge what we do. That's why we do the consults the way that we do. And that's why we don't dive in deep into specifics, because legally, if we give advice and a person relies on it to their detriment, then we can be responsible for that. So we have to be very careful. But general information like we share when we're trying to explain the parameters generally about how immigration sees things, well, that's different. And that's what this is all about. Okay, but thank you for that question, Aniela. We really appreciate it. And big smile, back to you. Okay, let's dive in. We've got a whole bunch of questions. The time is just soaring by. Alex says, yes, both in BC, already working here. Thanks. I'll check in with your consult. Give you one of those applauses, Alex. Awesome. I love it when people do that. Okay, we've got another super that's popped up here. Okay, let's see. Let me just see here. Give me a second. I think it did. Okay. Oh, that's why. I know why. I was looking at the wrong section here. Okay. So Kyria says, I completed my articles, in the UK and qualified as a lawyer. My duties match the paralegal knock, however, instead of the lawyer knock. which knock to choose as articles is excluded from paralegal knock? That's a great
Mhm.
question. Of course, I cover it in the course at length, but Alicia, fire away.
So, Kyria, and it's interesting because I had a client that I was working with from Trinidad who had actually gone to the UK and had done their legal education or some of their legal education there also. And depending on the country, the regulations for professionals and for the legal profession is quite different or can be quite different. In terms of what is required in Canada, this is where we've got to be really careful because lawyers are regulated occupations. Not just anybody can come to Canada and hang out a shingle and say, hey, I'm going to practice law. You have to be properly authorized by the Law Society for the province that you are working and living in. So, when you're looking at doing your National Occupation Classification Code selection, it can get pretty complicated because you have to pick the knock that's going to align with the work experience where it has occurred, but then also picking what you want your primary occupation to be or what you think you're going to be doing once you come to Canada. So it depends on whether you're outside Canada, whether you're inside Canada, and you've got Canadian work experience. So those are two separate things in terms of figuring out what your lead statement is and what the majority of the main duties are. For sure, you can't claim to be a lawyer if you are working in Canada and you're not actually certified and licensed to be practicing as a lawyer. So if your job matches better with a paralegal description, um, be careful in terms of how you choose your knock and what you're relying on for foreign work experience versus Canadian work experience. I'm not sure where you are right now.
Yes. Okay, let's just see here. I'm just going to pull up. Oh, interesting. It's always interesting when people do a little super, but I can't find your original comment. So Sukhdeep, post it and we'll get back to it. Okay, next question. Let's see here. Okay. We'll give a shout out to Harshit. He's over in India. Good to see you. Okay, Prince Tech says, good day. I've gained admission already into a college in Canada, but please, do I need IELTS result to apply for a student visa in Canada? That's an interesting question there.
Yeah, so Prince Tech, it depends on whether you're applying for student direct stream or not. So if you are applying through SDS, and there's only certain countries that are on the list for acceptable SDS student direct stream countries, yes, you absolutely need to have a language test, otherwise you're not eligible for SDS. However, some other kind of regular study permits, depending on the program and the requirements of entry with the university or the college. Sometimes they need an actual IELTS result, but some of those programs of studies will actually accept other types of language test results like Duolingo and things. But that's for acceptance with the college. For IRCC, you've got to prove that you have a temporary intent and that study permit makes sense for your background, your history, and that you are likely to return to your country of nationality at the end of that period of studies. So one of the things they look at is how proficient are you in English or French? Because there's a direct correlation, like practically, between how well students do, international students do, depending on whether they have high language skills or low language skills. So the higher your language skills in English or French, the better students tend to do with their program of studies in Canada.
Yeah. And I had a client who came to me who had their application rejected for that exact reason. It was two parts. One, their academic history in India, their grades weren't very high. And two, their language assessment that they had completed was also not very high. It was low, and they refused on both of those grounds. So it does form a very important part. Okay, Sean says, can one submit one eAPR for one express entry stream, then create another profile to seek another invitation to apply for another stream? And it's interesting. I am starting to see this more and more now, you guys, as IRCC tries to cut down on duplication of applications. And so in the past, when you were submitting applications through different streams, often they were paper-based and then online. And so your express entry had no programs encroaching within your IRCC secure account. But now they have started to ask you to link them. And basically those paper-based applications are pretty much dinosaurs now because of the rollover to online filing. So when you file electronically, now we're seeing people who have, say, PNP applications that have been submitted, who then want to go through express entry, are not having the ability, or at least I've been searching right now, and maybe some of you have workarounds, to be able to do another immigration application within the same IRCC secure account when you already have one in process. Now, legally, Alicia, we know people can have multiple applications, right? So the question for Sean, and I'll let you wade into it, and then we'll see what our thoughts are. Sometimes Alicia and I don't always agree with everything, but that's what's so fun about it. So is Sean going to create a new GC key? What are the damages of that? Is there a problem creating a new GC key? Will it cancel or somehow cause a problem with the other one? We don't have any details from you, my friend. So we're just totally speculating about generalities, and nothing we're going to say here we want to apply directly to you, because we need more information. Recommend you book a consult. But what are your thoughts on this, Alicia? I think it's cruel of IRCC, but anyways, so I say
It
screw them.
seems to be the direction they're moving, though, right? Especially with the new minister's report. That's what they're saying, is they don't want to have duplication. Duplication slows them down and messes them up. And I can see where they're coming from in terms of, and I think a whole bunch of applicants out there will say, hey, it's not fair for somebody to have two chances at
Yeah.
getting permanent residence in Canada, whereas the system's so backlogged they can't even get in the door, right? And so I think immigration is trying to force people into putting all their eggs in one basket and making sure that that application is the one that they're going to carry forth all the way to completion. So can you do it? Maybe. Will it possibly cause problems or complications in your original application? Maybe both your applications? That's likely.
You have to be very, very careful, Sean. And so once again, I recommend that you book a consult. Okay, I'm going to get to one here. I love this comment from Eli. It's not a question, it's a comment, but I really love it. It says, you guys rock. Well, of course, I'll give you applause for that. There's a lot of fear mongering and people throwing out wacky opinions for views. Well, understand, I'll pause right there. Eli, yes, because it gets views, right? And if you're trying to get views on YouTube or social media, putting out wacky theories, it's like clickbait. They'll get people to click. Now, sometimes I'll put a wacky title in, but the difference is there's substance to it, right? And so you don't want to call anyone out. Well, I kind of do, he says, but you guys keep it real with objective info. And I want to thank you for that, because I do throw out some wacky, Igor, we have fun. Like, for instance, you guys better join us. And yes, even if you're at work, you better come over here. I'm going to shift my screen and join us and subscribe right here, or get the notification button for this one right here, which is going to be so much fun. A special Halloween special that is the horrors of Canada immigration. In fact, we're going to share our immigration horror stories, and it's perfectly fitting for Halloween. And as immigration lawyers, when do people reach out to us, Alicia? When do they usually do it?
When it's all gone wrong. So
Yeah.
we have a lot of these stories. We're not going to name names. We're going to kind of mush different stories together, but it's going to give you an idea of what are the things that you should be scared about, because it can wreck your immigration application. And we know, and the reason that we take this so seriously is we know that this can ruin your life. It can keep
Yeah.
families separated for decades, if not permanently. And it's something so simple that you just don't realize that you ought to have done. And so we want to tell the horror stories as a cautionary tale so that you
Yes.
guys can avoid
Learn.
those horrors.
Learn. Yes. It's a teaching moment that's going to be a lot of fun. And I'm dressing up. So, all right. Aaliyah has got, I think, a two-part question here, but she says, in the PNP applicant, I'm a PNP applicant, so my CRS is 6,000. Yes, you get 600 points, 1,000 plus. So can you please tell me how many times is it safe to decline an express entry ITA, and will that have a negative impact on my eAPR? There's one important factor to pay attention to, Alicia, and I know you'll hit on it, but like, is there a restriction on the number of times? And do they think, oh, she doesn't really want to immigrate, she keeps declining our invitations? What do you think?
No, so there's no, well, as far as I know, there's no maximum time you can decline in ITA. However, be really careful because once you get an invitation to apply, you have to properly decline that invitation to apply before the deadline. Otherwise, it'll wipe out your express entry profile and you'll have to start all over again. So, the other thing that often happens is that your express entry profile is only valid for 1 year from the date that you created it. And so, depending on, when you're eligible for which program and how your CRS points are going to change, just be careful about declining that ITA depending on how it will affect your CRS and also your family composition. You know, if your program under the PNP requires settlement funds, then that's another thing to take a look at in terms of how long you've got to show that you've had those settlement funds for. So it's tricky on PNPs because a lot of people think, well, I don't have to prove settlement funds because I'm under a PNP.
Yeah.
But you might have to depending on what the provincial requirements are for the category you were nominated under. So be careful about that.
I think Cedric did a blog on this, didn't he? You guys have been pumping
Yeah,
out so many blogs.
Cedric and I were definitely talking about that. There's some interesting legal wrinkles in terms of PNPs and settlement funds. Um, and
I
I
thought
don't,
he had drafted one. Maybe he hadn't. Anyways, you can see
yeah.
now where I'm at, you guys. We have produced so many blogs, and these lawyers in the firm, all of these characters here, the team, are pumping out constantly new blog posts because people sometimes like to read and they don't want to sit and watch Mark blither on. And so we're constantly producing blog posts, and there's a search feature here that allows you to search, but it's a nonstop source of information. Like we've got Alicia just did 5 key TEER takeaways that I want to highlight. TEER's coming up. And so if you come here, you can see Alicia's top 5 list of takeaways. And these are really, it's a short, quick read, but it's really important things to pay attention to as the world shifts to, to the new 2021 knock. So that reminds me, Alicia, just give me a second here. I know that we have one other. I've got so many comments and our time's quickly running out, very quick. Remember, Alicia and I are going to be back again next week, and Cedric is going live and in the evenings. Oh, here we go. I knew there was one that was related to TEER. Okay, yes. So this is Eli. So Eli says, do you think IRCC may pause draws before the new year to accommodate the TEER system? I've heard some speculation that they might. Once again, right, Eli, get your application in, pay me to help you file it quick. Otherwise, everything could change and, you might be ineligible. Well, what are your thoughts in trying to combat the fear mongering? And we've seen there's precedent for that.
hmm And this is so, Eli, it's a really good question. And there is some basis in reality for the provincial nominee programs. And that's one of the things that I mentioned in the article is that some of the PNP, specifically BC and Manitoba are two of them, they have actually shut down their PNP applications entirely through their provincial systems to be able to switch the provincial kind of intake portals and their application processes so that they can align with TEER for the launch November 16th. So right now you can't even submit an application to BC PNP or Manitoba PNP. And for BC specifically, it's going to wipe out all the profiles and you have to start afresh using the new TEER after November 16th. So if you're in BC and you didn't realize that all this was happening and you thought you had a BC PNP application sitting in the pool, be really careful. You're going to need to reconstruct it and set it out again after November 16th, and you've got to have properly picked the right TEER code.
Yes. And I also want to point out that if you hired a representative to help you, they may very well want to charge you again to submit your application. So be wise, be smart. Like there will be many representatives that will say, okay, this wasn't your fault. We'll help you to recreate it. But this also might be your chance to free yourself from a representative if they do refuse your application that you just didn't trust, you weren't happy with the process, you didn't have control over it. And of course, we're here to help. But understand that you need to take responsibility for it because you may not even know, or your employer, your representative, they should be watching this, but you have to take ownership as well and know that this is happening. Hopefully they've already talked to you. Hopefully they've already taken steps, but if not, we're here and we can help. Okay. Okay. Sukdeep says, he says, proof of funds for PR application. I have a deposit in one account, which is sufficient to cover the 13,500. So he's a single applicant, or she is. I have other account, which I don't need to cover, 13.5K. So do I provide the details of the other account also? Of course, it's in my course, but yes, Alicia.
So, Sukdeep, I'm taking it's just you, right? So depending based on that amount, you don't have any dependents who are part of the application. So if you're sure that you're looking at the right amount that you need to do to prove settlement funds, then great. The trick is that you have to look at where your debts are as well as your assets. And that is what immigration specifies when they talk about those proof of funds letters and the bank letters that they want you to have. So it's not okay to say, hey, I've got $13,500 in one account, but I have $25,000 of student debt in my other account, and I'm just not going to show you that. That's not okay. So it really depends on what your full financial situation is.
Can't help but show my favorite site in the world, which is this one here. So those of you, if you haven't been here, go here. This is the best one, aside from my course, on giving you instructions on what to do. So if you go here and you search up proof of funds, there it is. And I go to the instructions, you can see the answer is right here, you guys. And this is the program delivery instructions that the officers use. The applicant should provide an official letter from one or more financial institutions that lists all current bank and investment accounts, as well as what Alicia just finished telling you. Once again, we're confirming how smart she is. Outstanding debts, such as credit card debts and loans. So you can see it's pretty clear. So there's not a lot of wiggle room for that, for all the reasons Alicia just finished explaining to you guys. Okay, last one, and we're just about at the end here. LJH says, in the express entry application, do I need to translate, scan, and upload my foreign degree that has been certified by WES? I have 2 degrees and I will upload the Canadian one anyways. So this is really, I need more information, but can you talk about this generally, Alicia?
Yeah, so in general, immigration says if you want to rely on any document that is not fully in English or French, then you need to get a certified translation. However, in your case, it depends on whether you need to rely on that foreign document or not. And we'd have to speak with you, LJH, to figure out if you can just rely on those Canadian points. How important is it to actually substantiate the foreign degree as well? Is there a risk that they may not accept that WES certificate? Is there anything kind of unique about that other foreign degree? But in general, it is way better to, if you are providing that foreign degree and you want immigration to consider it and just have no concerns in their mind that that's what you did and you qualified for that education, then for sure get the certified translation, because that is the safest thing to do. Depending on your circumstances, we can talk to you to see whether there might be another way to proceed.
Yeah. Okay, last question we'll pull up is PREET. So one that's close to home as well. And this, there's a number of people that have asked, what do I do? My study permit was refused, or my visitor application was refused. And we'll get to that generally. But the question, got a full scholarship to U of A for an undergrad course, yet somehow I got a refusal on my study permit, applied from Kenya, and I've reapplied. Is there something I can do to get it approved? So one, I guess, Preet, I wish you would have reached out to us before you filed the second application, but on our website, we have a ton of resources, blog posts, things like that to explain some of the most common problems. Alicia's drafted some great blog posts. You can see here when it comes to actual legal help, and that's often what happens when things go sideways. This is the reason we have this on our site, is because this is where real legal support is essential. You know, whether it's actually, dealing with the refused application, judicial reviews, reconsideration requests, delayed applications, writs of mandamus. And so, so I'll point that out right away, and everything. If you go to our site now, it's really starting to expand, lots of helpful information on all these different areas. So go check that out for sure. But Alicia, in this situation right here, what do you like? What thoughts or even consolation do you try to give Preet?
Yeah. So
coming
Preet,
from Kenya.
like please book a consult, because it might be, even if you have submitted that second application, if we can go through and look at everything, look at the reasons for refusal on that first application, take a look at what you submitted on the application the first time and the second time, sometimes it's possible for me to help and provide further information. Like you can sit down and draft, oh, well, wait a minute, these are the things that I didn't realize that are probably concerns on this application. And you can send in additional submissions on that study permit application. So that might be something that is possible to do. Um, Hopefully you have requested the GCMS notes, done an access to information and privacy request to try to figure out not just the generic template reasons for why you had that first study permit refused, but actually understand what happened with that first study permit application by getting those GCMS officer notes to try to figure out why they had concerns. Because if you don't address those concerns, and I know Chanel has also written a good blog article, if you just submit a second application that's really almost the same as the first one, it's probably just going to get refused again. And then the more refusals you have, the harder it is to get a study permit approved in the future.
Yes. And I can't help myself on this topic. Okay, Preet, you talked about having a total undergraduate, like having a scholarship, a full scholarship. So this is my favorite person in the whole world. His name is Kip Kangogo, and he came to Lethbridge and joined Lethbridge College on a full ride scholarship. And Kip is a distance runner. And I had the privilege of working with him the whole time he went through everything. And he was so close to going to the London Olympics, but his citizenship was just delayed. It took too long, so he wasn't able to go. But he was the first of many, many Kenyan distance runners that came to join us. And if I go back here and look at the Google search, I just pulled it up. Former Kodiak runner, a new Canadian, Kip Kangogo. We helped him in the firm to get his citizenship. But we had many, many subsequent Kenyan runners that came to join the college and to run with the athletics program. And you can see, I worked closely with Bertil and Kip and Ed and all these guys back then. Proud to wear the maple leaf. Just such a wonderful story for our community. But many of those runners, even though they had athletic scholarships to college, got their study permits refused. And so, this is, and we would battle, we would fight. Some we were able to be successful, others no. So those darn officers have tremendous discretion in determining when and where they're going to file. So they're going to approve these study permits, but that's why we're here to help. And no matter what country you're coming from, I highly recommend you slide over, you book a consult when you have those refusals, and then we can let you know as to whether or not there may be options like JR or just resubmitting the application. There's options available, I guess is what I'm saying. So yes. So I just wanted to share that. And that's what we're here for, is to help you guys. So another great live Q&A, Alicia. Thank you for joining me. Remember, guys, we're here every Thursday, 11 a.m. Mountain Time. I pop in on Wednesday mornings, but we are not just smiley faces and helpful information. Like we can provide legal representation for you to provide you peace of mind. And, when you lay your head down on your pillow at night, you can have a good night's sleep, essentially. All right.
And join us for our spooky Halloween stories, our horror stories on Monday.
Yep. One last little shout out for that as well. Over on the YouTube, but we'll probably broadcast it to all the channels as well. But yes, immigration horror stories. Join us. I wonder if I don't even think I have any scary music to finish off with. All right, guys. We'll turn on here a little bit of wrap up music here. Oh, nice. There we go. We got to finish in style. Okay. Take care.